All right. Going live. All right. So what do we have for this project?
Are you able to see the little project I have in there?
Mm-hmm.
Cool. So that's actually like the one I told you guys we could use. It's a very simple Express app I wrote for work. All it does is really just receive receive a HTTP call, load some data up, and just email it. It's rather simple.
Okay, so it makes like an email template.
Yes. So it actually makes emails people, and then it generates a CSV, and then emails that CSV as well to some other people. If that makes sense.
Yeah. So this email portion, send notice email.
Oh, that's just a very generic HTML email template with EJS.
From parser, which is a JS file. Okay. But basically there's two routes, the mailing list and nope, there's
three routes. There should be the mailing list, post sale, and then post install.
what does post sale and post install do?
Basically just kind of like as soon as like a project hit, like after like a sell call, like when the salesman's trying to sell something, after that happens, we email somebody a survey to let them know, so they let us know how the person did. So whenever that happens, this actually receives data from Salesforce. So Salesforce will should go ahead and watch for a change. When that change happens, it calls this API and just gives it like an array of whoever just had like their sell call completed.
Okay.
And then post install is after the project is done. Same thing. Something will trigger something that just calls this API and then loads the data up to be sent to a company that we use to manage your surveys.
Okay. So what would we test for this? Just that we get like a 200 back?
Well, there's a couple of things. I mean, I was just thinking about what we can do here is just the basics of kind of setting up just testing with Express, obviously setting up so we can test our routes, and maybe we can write like a unit test for one of the other functions that's there. Because there's quite a bit. Yeah, I mean, we'll say there's quite a bit of helper functions that kind of make everything happen in the background.
Is there a way to like do this without actually emailing people when you run the tests?
Yeah, we won't be testing like we'll either be mocking it or we might not get to actually the whole mocking the data. But I can actually, so it's I have a file there where, oh, that's kind of cool. You guys can't see it, but there's a .env file.
Yeah, it hides that by default.
Cool. So yeah, I can change whose email I send it to. So I'll just have it like automatically sent to my email rather than anybody else's anything.
Okay. I'm going to try and get your terminal here. If you can let me have write access.
Why do I give you write access?
It should have a little pop-up saying like Lee is requesting write access or something to the terminal.
Let me go ahead and close it up in my terminal and then. Is it giving you access or?
Not yet.
Oh,
There we go. So how do I run Jest?
right now I kind of configured it so if you go to package.json, and just you can see you can just run right now npm run test. And I'll just kind of run the tests that are there right now.
Okay. So you have Jest installed locally, not globally, right?
Correct. So right now there's only one test just to make sure that Jest got set up,
Okay.
properly set up.
And then Jest config.
Well, just config is just a small.
So it's just like the project name, and then verbose is like how much junk it prints to the console.
Yeah, and then you can specify if you still want to specify like which folders to look at or which folders not to look at. There can be a lot more that goes in there.
But right now we're just working with Jest pretty much, and that's it.
Yeah, because I was just setting the tests up for this one since I hadn't actually written any tests for this one actually.
Cool. So what? How do we test an endpoint?
Alrighty, so to test an endpoint, we actually have to kind of split up we have to split up our index.js file, because if you notice here, we're doing a couple of things where we're setting up our routes, and at the same time, we're kind of starting our server. So we kind of have to split that up. We have to split up the server from the actual, like, the rest of the app, if that makes sense. So to do that, so we can actually test some routes. We're just going to have to make another file called server.js.
So you're saying that you need to kind of split up everything?
Correct. Just to like decouple things so we can actually test them.
And this would help with what, mocking?
Mocking, and basically we're gonna be kind of mocking the actual server itself, like the whole HTTP thing.
Okay.
With super agent, which is one thing we're using last time that we kept running into issues with, because I think we were trying to test it with Mongo in the picture, and that was kind of weird.
Okay.
So basically we're gonna go ahead and extract this guy. We actually want to export that from here. I always seem to figure out how to type whenever we're doing this thing. That should work. So I'm just gonna switch over on our package.json just to make sure we're actually now running from the server file when we start it up rather than the index file. So server.js and server.js. I'm just gonna run it to make sure it's still. It's still booting up. So I guess the first test we want to write is just make sure that that we can actually boot, like the app kind of boots up, right? So, oh gosh, I'm not super good at writing tests with on Express on Node as I am on PHP. Just not super used to it. So, actually, no, I guess we'll start with just testing the route. Make it a lot simpler. So to test the route, we actually gonna need to use super test, which allows us to actually make like fake API calls from our test file.
Okay.
So I actually need to go ahead and install that. Super test and super agent. Oh, that installed pretty fast. Just gonna refresh myself on how we set this up last time. Um, right, so I need to get super test. Mm, I guess we can make a simple like just home route just to give a just to make sure. Okay, it's just me like so the home route just returns okay. That way we can make sure that's working fine before we test anything else.
Okay.
Alrighty. Alright, so since this is like a synchronous, we have to pass done to it. Most things when you test it, if you're just testing a synchronous code, you have to call done or next on it. Otherwise, the test runner will know it's finished running. Now it's gonna get stuck there, and then return an error.
Okay.
So one thing we also want to do here, and I forgot, is we want to import the app, and this is the reason we kind of separated the server from the app itself, because we're not going to be really listening to a port. We're gonna kind of be like propping up like the whole server thing when we're mocking it, like doing the test. So that was why we split it.
Is that supposed to be require?
It
Or
is.
no?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
I was
Just checking.
completely filled in. Yeah, no, you're good. Um,
Is that like
next.
okay?
Yeah, so we're gonna have this request. So request is just a little library that helps you like mock requests. Um,
You talking about super test?
yeah, super test. Sorry, I was thinking like I was reading requests. I'm like, wait, it's supposed to be called super test, but no, yeah. So request works. Hey, Austin's here to save my pet.
Cool.
So you're just gonna pass app to it, and then it would be like the same way you're calling like making like a normal like Axios request. In this case, get. We're gonna tell it what route to get. So we're gonna go ahead and get the home route here, and then we want to go ahead and it returns a promise. So you can either do a sync await or just a normal promise. I'm just gonna stick with normal promises. So dot them, and then that's actually gonna go ahead and return your response. Right, and then you can kind of do your normal testing here, which is like we expect it to be, and then whatever value, right? So when it comes to this, we expect response, the status code in the response. So actually, no, it's a property. So status code to be 200, right? Because it's just returning okay.
Okay.
Yeah, that should work. That should be like our first test, right? So we have it should kind of read it like so. We're requesting the get route, and we're expecting the response, the status code to be 200, right? So let's go ahead and run the test. It might blow up, it might not blow up. I'm not 100% sure. Oh, I forgot one thing here.
You forgot to call done?
Yeah,
That's funny.
yeah. That happens to me sometimes when I'm like making a normal Express app and you're writing the middleware, and all of a sudden you're wondering why your app doesn't work, and I'm like, oh, forgot to call that. Or next. Oh. That's so
Hey.
cool. So it passed. So we have a fully passing response. And other things we can test in here, right? So we want to make sure it returns the actual text we told it to return. So in this case, it was just okay, right? So expect response. If I'm not mistaken, it's body, right? Or gosh, I can't 100% remember what's inside the response object.
Maybe response.data? I'm not sure.
I'm just gonna cheat real quick, and I'm just gonna console log out the response object because I honestly don't remember um, everything that comes with it. I know if it was JSON, if you just send JSON, it's data, or if you wrap it in the data thing, it's data. But I'm not sending JSON back. I'm just sending text. So I'm not 100% sure remembering. All right, so we have headers, body, no, it's not body. It's text.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're expecting the text to be or to equal. There's different things to test with, like to be undefined, to be equal to. The normal one just to be. So basically to equal. In this case, okay. And that should, in theory, work. So yeah, it
Nice.
passed as well. So we have another assertion in there as well.
So I noticed that you can have lots of conditions within one test.
Yeah, so normally the way I'll do it, mainly when I'm doing, like, for example, in some PHP, I'm not sure if, how the Node community might feel about it, but I'll kind of test everything that's supposed to come back with the response object. So normally you don't have to test like each individual data point, but you can test like, oh, I want the keys for like my JSON to be structured this way, or have this fields in it.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. So now the $1,000,000 question is, okay, we can test a garbage endpoint that doesn't do anything, but when we ask for other stuff from your index file, like let's take a look at maybe the first route that you defined.
Correct. So mail list. So this is kind of tricky because this technically runs asynchronously. So basically, when you call this endpoint, as long as the body has some length, even if it does, it automatically returns JSON the status 200. Like it doesn't even wait for this to process because this happens all in the background. So that can make it kind of hard to test, right? Because it's just one
So
giant.
yeah, I'd be curious if Austin has anything to contribute. Is he in the call?
He should be. He's muted though. He must be tired of his 3-day sprint.
Yeah, if you're out there and you're doing a 3-day sprint at work, um, there's other ways out aside from like drinking heavily and smoking cigarettes and other self-destructive behaviors. So there's better jobs out there. Uh, yeah, I don't know if he's gonna hop in here, but so I would wonder if this is actually a problem with testing or if this is just like you shouldn't have written it this way. Like all that you're sending back is like, yes, you hit the endpoint basically because you're responding with a status.
Correct. It depends on what you're doing. The only reason I did it that way is because Salesforce can be very picky about its response time. So if it doesn't get a response back almost immediately, it decides to time out and just throw an error because it's special like that. So that's the only reason I did it. I made it return a promise and just automatically keep going. But in this case, I think what we would test is not just the fact that so this is not technically like a resourceful endpoint because it's not returning any resource.
Right.
But we can actually go ahead and test the actual function. So in this case, we would be wanting to test a Unix function because this guy over here is technically a side effect.
Right.
Which is fine because it's on the edge of the app. It's on the controller would be the way I would say it.
So you would write like a unit test perhaps for that?
Correct. Or maybe not for the whole thing, but there's a couple of different functions that get called here. So we have process customers to notice email. What am I doing here? Then I'm returning. That returns this returns a couple different promises. Yeah, this returns an array of promises. So we kind of like do a promise, oh, here to wait for them, they return that. Then we map those guys, and then we send the email. So I feel like now that I want to test this, I feel like I probably could write this in a cleaner way.
Well,
Um,
hold on. Let me first try and write a test for mail list and see how far I get.
cool.
Test mail. Well, let's do this. Slash mail list should return 200. So we'll call request app dot get mail list dot then and so we're going to expect basically the same stuff as above. Response.status code to be 200. And then we're gonna, I think, look at either body or data, right? I think body.
It's gonna be body. It's in the body.
So this is gonna be weird because we want like this exact object, right? With a status 200.
Correct.
So it'll be interesting to see how it handles that.
It's either gonna
and then done.
yeah, it's either gonna be that or it's gonna be two equal. I don't really remember.
Let's try it.
Did it run yours?
It did not run mine.
Oh, it didn't. You didn't save, or you saved, but it didn't save on my computer.
Okay, now let's try it. Ah, okay. So where do we fail? Serializes to the same string. Object.is.
So it says if it should pass with deep equality, replace the to be to strict equal.
Let's try that. Hopefully that's saved on your end.
I think it did.
It did. There we go. To strict equal.
Sweet. I'm curious. I want to look at the to be and to equal. So we have. I'm guessing the documentation. I'm just refreshing myself. So I'm going to just docs, just refreshing myself on the different assertions you can have. So there's like to match if you're trying to match some rejects.
Oh, maybe to equal is what we were looking for.
Yeah.
If you want to test the value of an object, use to equal. So let's try that real quick. Instead of to strict equal, which is probably doing extra things that we don't need. Still works.
Yep. So to be for primitives and to equal for anything else, pretty much.
Got a bunch of truthy things, got a bunch of comparators, got strings with a regex. This is funny. Shopping list to contain beer. Yeah, cool. So this is what we would call not end-to-end, but I guess integration testing, or is this technically like an end-to-end test for a server? Because you get an input and an output, right?
Yeah, kind of. And the main reason why I say kind of is because it's weird, because for me, mainly coming from like in Laravel, we kind of just test it like this for the most part, and we'll call that kind of like the unit test. And I know some people are more strict about their different definitions of what a specific test should be. But yeah, this would be end-to-end testing.
If this was a bigger app, like if you had a front end to this that had like the front end was calling the endpoints, like an end-to-end test for that would be The test would
Like,
spin up like Selenium or something and click on like a virtual browser, and then make sure that it like runs the server and the server barfs out whatever, and then that happens on the screen, right?
correct. Like the full one, yeah. So you'll be expecting, like, let's say if I click this button and somehow I'm expecting this header to change from saying hello to bye, I'll just click the button and expect and tell like Selenium or whatever I'm using to test, do the end-to-end testing, for it to be, for the text to change in that specific div.
But what we're
I don't
doing
care.
now, what we're doing now in the context of a full stack app would be like an integration test,
Yeah, I guess we can call it that.
because we're like testing the edges of this server and how it would plug into like the front end. So if the front end hits this route mail list, it should get back like this object and the status code,
Yeah,
and we don't
even though
care what the details are.
correct. And even though this technically doesn't have to be like a front end, so yeah, it's an integration test because it's testing the integration between this little service with another service.
Okay. So then, how would you, I guess, unit test like the crap that happens within this mail list function or this
Oh
mail list
gosh.
route?
Um, all right. So now I'm thinking about it. I have to kind of see what happens. Well, when what all of this encompasses, right? Because it's kind of like a little process, which made sense when I was writing it like last week, but now I kind of feel like it's probably not really testable. I could be wrong. Austin could use more help with this if he's around eventually. Because basically what it does, what it's gonna do here, it's called process customers to notice email. It's gonna just take the body of the request, and then it's gonna run this function, right? So if we go all the way down here, all that is doing is grabbing this, which is customers.
So
Um,
would we make like parser.test.js and test some of that?
yeah, I think that would be a better way to start actually, because that's gonna be a unit. I was gonna go to that in a second because this actually sends it to map notice email, right? Um, which basically this is all this is going to parser, and what parser is just kind of mapping the data I need out of each specific object. So if you go to parser.js, you'll notice it really just mapping over an array, um, and returning that like just changing names and things.
Okay.
So yeah, I guess that would actually be simpler to test.
So how would you like? I don't know what a buffer.from returns or really a whole lot about buffers, but like this parse to CSV function would be kind of interesting to test. Maybe we should leave that one for later. Because you're
Uh,
taking in data and a file name, and then it's gonna like. Actually, it doesn't look like it does anything with file name, just data. So
yeah, it's just data. Before you used to take a file name and everything, because it used to be more. But all it really does is just take a take a JSON, take just a normal JavaScript object, and turn it into CSV.
cool. Let me try and take a crack at that then. So we're gonna go into source and create like parser.test.js, right? And then we need to do what? Do we bring in parser.js?
Yes.
So we're gonna do like const parser is equal to require parser, like that.
Yep.
And then we're gonna do let's see what you export out of parser. So just these functions, right?
That is correct.
So then in index test, syntax is test, a description, and a function. So for parser test, we would do like test, not that, test. Let me get this real quick so I don't have to look over and over. So we would test parse to CSV is the first one.
Correct.
It should take in what now? You said
It's gonna
JSON?
take normal JavaScript object.
Take a JS object and return what?
A CSV buffer.
CSV buffer. Okay.
Which makes me kind of wonder some stuff, but if it turns out to be like a pain to test that out, then they'll prove the fact that I was probably wrong for making it return a buffer.
So how do we do this? Do we call parser dot parse the CSV, and is that async or synchronous?
It can be synchronous.
So we need like some kind of mock data to pass it?
Yes.
Does it matter what that data is, or it's just...
No.
Give me like some garbage data for how this should look. Like what goes in.
Alrighty. So it's actually gonna be an object, but it's gonna be better. It's gonna look better if it's an array.
So it takes an array of objects?
An array of objects or an object. It's just easier to see. It would just be easier to see if it was an array of objects.
Okay.
I don't know.
He does like cookies, folks. He does like cookies. Oh, this code style kills me. But keep going.
What happened?
Oh, okay. You saved it in Prettier. It saved your bacon.
Oh, you're gonna rip on me for the way it looked?
I was, but that's okay.
And I have prettier on safe. Otherwise, it would be all over the place. All right, I guess that works.
Okay. So we would get like something like this. And then we would go on and say like expect result dot to equal or to be a string or a buffer or whatever that is.
Hmm. Yes, I've actually never tested a buffer, so so what I was gonna say, let's see.
You definitely picked like a difficult thing to test for a test project or an example project to test.
So I guess the first thing we can expect it to be is just, we can expect it to be an instance of a buffer.
Okay,
So
how do you do that?
So we do have to be instance of.
Fancy.
If of an instance of, what's the thing called, buffer. Yeah. So
Where is this in the Jest docs that you're looking?
uh,
Expect API doc?
um,
To be
that was
instance of? Check
Did you
that
find
an
it?
object is an instance of a class. And it takes a function. Which I guess would be the constructor function. Yeah. Okay, cool. So let's test that.
Hopefully it works.
Son of
Oh
a
my god,
gun.
it actually worked.
That's funny. Okay, so would you want to test the exact result?
um, I would. It makes me feel weird. It makes me feel weird. So it should. Yeah, I mean, I guess yeah.
That's kind of like a useless test, but right?
I mean,
Kind of.
we're expect. Well, we're expecting it to return. We're expecting part of like the little spec here is it has to return a buffer. Um. So it's not fully useless.
I guess. This is okay, so this would be like a thing that TypeScript would knock out. Like if we were using TypeScript, it would
Yeah, we're
scream at
using
us if this didn't happen. We wouldn't have to write a test
correct.
for this. But
Correct. So what I'm thinking about right now is just to make testing this easier because sometimes when you're testing things, you kind of realize you kind of made a function do two things. Um, so if we go back to over here, we can probably get rid of the buffer part and just return the CSV part. Even though this technically can now be at something.
okay.
And now we can actually just make sure we test, make sure the string matches what we expect it to.
So what was the
Hmm.
wait, why are you getting rid of the buffer? Or is that like a different function you're going to call within there?
I was just gonna pass the buffer to. I was actually gonna go ahead and use the buffer instead of. So basically, when it calls this, if we go back to index.js, um, where's um, where's process customers, where's email. So oh wait, no, we're buffer. That's not part of that. So basically, it just returns like the data buffer. Where is it? Parses CSV returns the where's this going? So it just returns the buffer data and
Wait, scroll down. Okay. Process appointments to CSV gets called where?
that's gonna be part of post cell and post install.
Okay. What is the buffer actually doing?
The buffer is just because when you're actually if you go to the mailing class, the mailer, um, not the mailer, uh, there's a function here that sets up an email. So on the send CSV email, the content for the content you can easily just pass in a buffer of some sort, and then they'll automatically send that. But for what I was thinking, it was just going to be
Just the
instead of
CSV?
just a CSV, and then we just call buffer from over here, and
Because we don't really care about the implementation of buffer. Like, we don't need to test that, right?
yeah.
So if we do that, then now this function parse the CSV should return a CSV, right?
A string, yeah.
So that should be instance of string.
Yeah. I mean, we end up in the same problem where it's kind of silly testing that.
So we're
guess,
now we're testing basically a wrapper function for basic functionality.
yep.
So maybe it would be better to not even have a parse the CSV, but use Papa in two different spots or something. Or
That is correct, actually. um,
okay.
This originally used to do more when I first wrote it, but I guess we can actually test just to make sure the string matches.
I guess this is kind of the point of testing, right?
Well, yeah, there's two approaches to it. There's one where you write your test first, what you're supposed to do, and then you can kind of like work your way around it. So you'll be like, I need something that does this, and then you make it happen. And then when you kind of go back and start writing your test, and you realize, oh crap, what did I do this for? Which is worse if you're on a live stream.
I don't think there's anybody watching, but maybe at some point in the future they'll see this. Um, no, I think this is going well so far. So let's. So I guess, do you want to refactor parse the CSV now, or just kind of leave that alone and move on to like map post sale or something?
Um, yeah, let's do that.
So for map post sale, this is kind of like why people think unit tests are useless, but because yeah, for this, like, what would you test? That it returns a string that has commas in it?
For which one, the parse CSV?
Yeah.
I mean, you really wouldn't even test it, right? Because you're expecting the library itself, pop-up parse, to already have tested that for you.
Right. Yeah. So this is just kind of a wrapper at this point.
Yeah.
So for map post sale, this returns just some internationalization stuff.
No, they just kind of makes things a little bit simpler to work with.
What is so
Where am
this
I messing?
line stuff? Where first of all, like what calls map post sale and what's the data getting passed into it?
So map post is getting called from. So if we go back to index.js, where am I? So process appointments to CSV. Process appointments to CSV is kind of weird because it takes the body, then it takes a function to it. That way I can just use the same function for both of them. But just the only thing that changes is the map post sale and map post install. So slightly different implementations of data they're going to have and how they're going to make the data look.
I don't know if I'm looking at the same spot as you. Okay.
Can I?
Here we are. Okay, I'm with you. So we're in the post route post sale, and
Yeah.
that gets past the function map post sale.
Yeah, I use that so I can use the same function for both of them. So it gets the body and then it gets like the mapping function per se.
Okay. And then
Um,
so then what does map post sale do? I guess
so
internally.
internally, it just kind of like flattens the data out so I can so to like a consistent thing. Because when the data comes in, they'll have like a bunch of extra fields. Some of the fields are kind of like super long.
This is
Um,
data that the users are passing in.
well, it's basically somewhat like a cron job or like a watcher's passing in. Yeah.
That's going to be pretty hard to test because you're expecting like a certain data set out of this, right?
Oh, we can mock it.
Okay.
Yeah,
This seems like something that a TypeScript interface would fix, or like you would just have that and not test it. You know what I mean?
that is correct, actually.
I'm not like a huge TypeScript fan, but I can see like when you're writing tests, like how aggravating that could be.
Yeah, because honestly, all I would have to do is interface. What do you want to call it? And
Yeah.
just yeah, that would yeah.
You wouldn't have a test for it, but TypeScript would freak out if. Well, here's the thing though. Here's where TypeScript wouldn't help you. If somebody sent you data that was, and really the unit test wouldn't help either, but if somebody sends you data that's different, like TypeScript's not going to catch it at runtime, and like your test obviously isn't going to catch it because you're just mocking it. So you're kind of like hoping and praying that the data you're being sent by this job is the correct data. Otherwise, this will fall flat. So
Correct. Unless we want to test map post sale to get janky data and to make sure you can handle the janky data properly without crashing the rest of the app.
that would be a good test case, yeah.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, that's right. Actually,
But it doesn't do that, right?
um,
It just returns like, so it would have like phone1 undefined or something. If like
Correct.
that thing was misnamed or something.
Correct. Oh, but what we can have it do is we can test to make sure that none of them are no fields undefined.
Okay. But the function currently doesn't handle that. So.
Correct. Because at the end of the day, this is probably going to go. This is being turned into this is getting parsed into a string, right? A giant CSV string.
Uh-huh.
So if there's any undefined, that's not a good thing. But we'll be okay if we have a blank string, right? An empty string.
Okay.
I think so. Or is an empty string the same as undefined in JavaScript?
Right.
Don't remember.
It's falsy. Both are falsy.
Mm-hmm. But can you stringify a undefined, or is it gonna crap out?
I don't know. That's a good question.
So we'll do a test map.
It just returns undefined.
Interesting.
It just skips that property, so that would be bad in your case.
Yeah, because there's no shift of my columns to one side.
Yep. So you would want something like either a wrapper function for each of these things, or to do something like or a blank string for each of these values.
Correct. Does that actually work if you're doing an object?
Pretty sure.
Right. I guess we'll write the test for it and see what happens. So
here, let's
map.
Try it in the console. It does work. Yep.
Map postal returns so map post subject returns object with no undefined fields. I guess would be one way to put it.
Yeah.
That works. Right, so I guess we want to go ahead and how do you want to do this? Oh, so we're going to go ahead and do the little what's the little thing people do? It's called a range act.
What is this?
Assert. So again, not super good at testing myself, but I know, like, for example, like people when they're doing unit tests, they try to follow the thing where they kind of set up the world, do that, perform the action, and then assert. So that's kind of like the testing philosophy thing people do.
Okay. Did not know that or have never heard of that, but I like it.
It's like I've heard about it, doesn't mean I do it.
Fair enough.
I mean, it's kind of the natural thing you do when you're doing tests, right? Like when you don't try to like test something out, you kind of like set it up, so mock the data, instantiate the stuff you need to instantiate. So we want to go ahead and make a data object, I guess. That's an array that.
I mean, that's pretty much the thing that we did above, right? In the previous test, the parse to CSV test. So
Yeah,
we create our mock data, then we do the thing, and then we make sure that we got the result that we wanted.
Yeah, it's kind of like the natural path you normally follow. Yeah.
We should make t-shirts up that say arrange, act, assert, or assert.
I wonder if there's t-shirts like that, in like Redbubble or something.
I may Google search it. I don't see one, but I'm really excited at the possibility.
A Project Codex t-shirt.
We don't have any t-shirts yet, but one day. I actually know a guy, so it's a possibility for sure.
Interesting. So wait, what are we doing? Who's giving? What's the whole making us sell the game with C# next week?
Yeah, next week is going to be a presentation on making games with Unity, and Unity happens to use C#. So
That's actually exciting.
I'm glad that you're excited about it. Some people are like, meh, C#, I don't care. But it's not really like when you're making a game in Unity, you're not really writing a whole mess of C#. You're just kind of like scripting with C#. And you're
Yeah.
really like learning Unity. So I
I
figured
mean, most of us.
it would line up with the previous meetup that we had, which was like an intro to C#.
Yeah. I mean, most of us got into programming to make games in the first place.
Yeah, I certainly have that interest myself. Have not been super successful at it yet, but still hopeful.
Yeah. I used to make Minecraft mods,
That's awesome.
which was back in the day when Minecraft was like all the things, all the rage. So going back to the testing part, so I kind of made this two like objects right here. So we have line, which is just an empty object, so we can still use the same object we used in parser.
Okay.
So basically, if you call line and call any of this fields online, it should return undefined. So I guess if we go and import this, which already is, we have parser.map, where we're testing map post install, map post now. Right, and we're gonna pass data to it. And we are expecting an array of objects back. Or in this case, just one object. Const, and also we're expecting to not contain. Is there such thing as to not contain?
Yeah, it would be. Let me find the docs. It would be matchers. Strings are okay. No, this. What do we get back from parser? Is it a string?
No. The parser is going to be you're going to get back an array of objects, so an iterable.
Okay, so there should be an array. Yeah, arrays and iterables. Which one do you get back? I guess it doesn't matter. So it would be either like dot to contain or dot not dot to contain.
Dot not to contain.
Yeah. So.
Oh, so
So not to contain.
What happens if you say undefined? I wonder if that will. Does it recursively search the whole, like dig in recursively through things, or just like the top object?
Maybe you would have to use. I don't know. How do you loop through an object with this thing? They only have an example that shows arrays.
I mean, we can just run a for each.
Shopping list dot to contain. Okay.
I'm just curious what happens if I type undefined here, though.
Probably nothing. Probably pass.
It should, okay, it should return undefined. Oh, it failed.
Yeah, but where did it fail?
It failed because.
It failed because line has nothing, and that. Yeah, it failed because you threw an error because that thing doesn't exist.
Sweet. So now we have to fix our function to handle that.
Yeah, the function is not very robust in the first place. So, you've got like you got to make sure that line.i360 underscore prospect underscore r exists first before you can call name on it. Which is pretty messy, but well, you could do this. If it doesn't exist, this is super messy. You're gonna hate this. Which
wait, what?
I'm pretty sure that will work, but it's awful. So you could do this, and then this is like a nested ternary.
That's disgusting.
Yeah, that's pretty gross, right? But that's how you would do that in a one-liner.
I'm just gonna run it. I wonder if it's gonna pass.
Did it still?
I think it. No, it's still hitting the. Oh wait, never mind. It's not even getting there. It's actually failing up here.
It's failing where?
Up
Oh,
here.
because the mock data is different.
There.
Okay.
Now it should actually hit the function.
Well. Okay.
Wait, why is the other one failing now?
Expected constructor string. Receive value has no okay. So this should be not instance of, but to be like what, a type? Matchers, strings. Expect. Expecting just to be a string is kind of lame, but so maybe you do, where did we go? Expect type of result to be string.
Yeah, it sounds like a really good test.
Yeah. Kind of sucks, but whatever.
Wait, what the hell? Why did everything pass? Not supposed to. It's not supposed to pass.
Well,
What the hell?
it's probably passing because I fixed parser.js, the map post sale thing. So like if you make line an empty object again, it should still pass. Oh, now it's failing.
No, but it's actually failing on line 38 in the test. Wait, let me go ahead and console log out results because it should have some undefined results in there. Or maybe you actually have to loop through them. Yeah, see, there's undefined. So I think we actually have to do for.
Yeah, but parser should, because I wrote that crazy ternary, that should fix client
It
name.
actually did.
Yeah,
On the client name, it actually did. It returned a string.
but you should not have to write that in line.
No, when setting up the data, we still have to because we're kind of setting up this to be undefined right here.
Well, it's
So
not.
this is where
It's not undefined. It's an empty object.
mhm.
So like that will come back undefined, but like it should. When so we're actually running map post sale with this data, and it should. Oh, maybe that's why it's failing. I think I get it now. Because, like, data itself is relying on line. I got you.
Yeah, I guess a different way to do this one, that way we don't have to do that one part, is just say from the get-go this is undefined.
Yeah. So, yep. Okay.
So I was thinking, so instead of that, we actually have to loop to each one of them. So expect item, not to contain.
Wait, but results is an array.
So it should be off.
You would have to loop through the results and then loop through the properties on each result.
This should actually, the to contain should look at the properties,
Oh.
shouldn't it?
Well, then, in that case, you would just do... I don't know, I've never used a for of, but does that work for arrays?
Intervals, yeah. I also always forget if it's supposed to be in or off when it comes to arrays. You guys will log it out and find out.
We're fixing to see.
Should be anyways. Oh,
It's logging... Yeah, it's just looping through the array and logging each item in the array, which is the object.
so we have to be like something like item dot. Do we have to something like object dot?
Hold on. Before we get crazy in this, why not do like results for each item for key and item expect IntelliSense is killing me. Item key. You should probably do like if object dot has own property or item dot has own property. Key expect to, not dot to be undefined. I think. Maybe.
Yeah, let's give it a
Expect
try.
to be undefined, yeah, is a thing. So
Oh yeah.
Received undefined at somewhere. So something
Yeah, so
something failed in the parser function.
yep.
Yeah, so the rest of these are returning undefined, right? So
So what's the easiest way to do this? Just literally just or could we map over this again and then replace it in one line rather than have to do it 30 times.
You could write like a helper function to do it, but for
Well,
sake
I guess, yeah.
for sake of speed, let's just brute force it and see what we get.
And it passed.
There you go. Sick. I can't believe that takes a whole second to run like 3 tests.
That seems very slow.
It does seem a little slow. Yeah.
Could it be because we're doing live share or something?
Maybe. Could be. Yeah. But yeah, I'm pretty satisfied with that result because
Yeah.
that's what you need for this, right? It has to be a blank volume or a blank value for the CSV. Like
Yeah.
when this comes out, it should be what's it called? Every column should be there, regardless.
Correct. And this kind of made me realize maybe TypeScript is actually worth it because there's a lot of little things that it actually enforces.
Don't forget, TypeScript would not save you here. So the
Oh,
the unit test did save you here. TypeScript would not have cared. You would have had to write an interface that says like I expect these values out of the API, but that's not going to help you at runtime when you get the actual like API callback. It just, I don't even think it'll blow up. It'll just give you like a crap result because TypeScript doesn't run at runtime. It's like it's like a bad, like big bad linter that's running.
Gosh, this is interesting.
So let's do like, let's see if this helps. Yeah, so you can see like all the implicit types and stuff. And then let's try it here. This is my favorite part of TypeScript, is not actually using it, but just turning it on. So if you do that,
Wait, what file are you on?
what's that?
I was trying to find where you were. Oh,
I'm
okay.
in parser test.js. So if you can turn TypeScript on, and it's saying like, hey, I don't know what test is. Install like types from Jest. But like this will help with like result. Okay, result should be a string. Parser has these functions, and then parse the CSV returns a string. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's like what I would consider like a huge benefit to TypeScript. And that is, it helps you as you're coding by like giving you greater IntelliSense on stuff, and it will kind of like sanity check you on certain things. Like if you write a stupid function that you pass in like some garbage that it's not supposed to get passed in, it'll underline it and scream at you. But at the same time, it will freak out about a lot of other things like expect, even though that's from Jest. So, I mean, it did technically catch like, hey, you didn't actually define key, for instance. Like, hey, you didn't define that, dumbass. Or dum-dum. So you put let, and then it's like, oh, you declared a variable. Cool. Otherwise, this would be like a var. So that's kind of like the cool part about it. But having to like satisfy the type checker just because is awful, 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 awful. It's really annoying. Especially like in this exact example where we've got like, we're expecting external data to come in. You have to like create an interface for all of the results that you're expecting from it. So line should have these properties and they should be a type of string. Like mapping all that out stinks, in my opinion.
Got it. That's because you used to do Angular, correct?
I did Angular, yeah.
Hmm.
Angular is obviously uses TypeScript. So it's kind of like it's a give and take. Like you get awesome benefits from using it, but you're also spending a lot of time typing crap out. Like not literally typing, but creating types for stuff.
Interesting.
But yeah, it's it obviously like it get imagine you had like 3,000 files in this project and you're importing crap everywhere and exporting it all over the place. TypeScript will just programmatically follow all that, and then when you get to a certain file, you just hover it over it. Instead of it saying any, it'll be like, oh, results is an array of these type of objects that have these properties and keys and values and stuff. You're like, oh, okay, that's what it is. So it makes it a little bit easier to work with like a huge project.
Cool.
Well, I am comfortable calling it there. I think this has been pretty productive as far as like learning basic testing for Node. I certainly feel a lot better about it than I did when I started. So maybe we can
Yeah,
pick this
hopefully.
up doing some other stuff with Node testing. Or maybe get the other
Yeah,
guys in and get like a little philosophy going on like what we're doing and why.
yeah, maybe with the Quizzy app, or that actually has like a full backend now.
Yeah, that might be cool.
Yeah.
All right, well, thanks everybody for joining us.
Right.
And